Hi, this is Reg Athwal, and welcome to another one of our shows on Reg Athwal TV. Today is all about family business experts, where I get a chance to interview an authority, an expert who's going to give us their ideas, words of wisdom, insights that can help us at a family level or business level, but I know today it's going to be both. So it's a real pleasure to have Sue Firth joining us in a few seconds on our show. Let me give you a formal introduction. Our guest is Sue Firth. She's a highly successful business psychologist, professional advisor, and a leading authority on stress, leadership resilience, which is very timely for this year, sustainable performance, and well-being, all blended together as a specialist areas. She helps owners, she helps CEOs, senior executives to manage their work, their life, and become more resilient. And she works at a group level as well as one-to-one with individuals. She's regular on media and press-related interviews. She's a regular guest and expert on ITV, BBC, just to name a few. And she runs her practice successfully today in Surrey and in London in the United Kingdom. Finally, she's published many books already, and I believe there's another 2 or 3 in the series coming out soon. And More Life, Less Stress is one of her recent books, bestsellers. And now taking the stress out of leadership, which is another bestseller. And if you look at the right on the screen, you will see a brand new book launching this Friday. If you're watching this in August 2020, this Friday is the release of Real Life, Real Topics, which is a series of books. So we'll talk more about that in the episode. So on that note, Sue, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Reg. That was absolutely lovely. You know, stress, health and well-being are just so important in life. And I think if we recognize there's some stuff that we can do for ourselves, that is really brilliant.
So Sue, I love that as an anchor straight in, because I keep hearing about well-being. It's suddenly become a hot subject in 2020, but it's been there for many years. You've been doing this for many, many years. So why is it suddenly relevant this year? And more importantly, at a basic level, what does it really mean? What is well-being?
Yeah, I think it was relevant even pre-COVID, actually. And it's particularly relevant to owners because they have rather a lot of stress. And that's due to the fact that they have a lot of accountability for what happens. Their choices and their decisions matter a great deal, both to them, but also their employees. And unfortunately, that means they shoulder a great deal. So then you start seeing difficulties with what you now recognize as stress and health and well-being, because they struggle with some symptoms that start to pop up, and that's not getting enough sleep, and that's pulling on their bandwidth and not having enough time and space for themselves and their relationships. This isn't really okay, but they learn to live with it. So to be honest, the most important thing for people to recognize is a modicum of stress helps you because it gives you all that adrenaline, but you don't really want to get to the point where you're exhausted, because that's where health and well-being start to suffer. So I want to really be able to explain the difference.
So is that the direct connection then? Well-being linked to stress?
Yes. If you are looking after yourself, and however simple that sounds, because most of us take that for granted, we don't break it down. What you're looking for is, how rested am I? So how deep is my sleep and how much quality sleep am I getting? It really doesn't matter if you get 5 hours, as long as they're 5 good hours, and you should get up in the morning feeling like you've got the energy to start. The natural process of helping you to do that is cortisol, which hits the system. So everybody should have what I call a modicum of stress. That's normal. It's the only way you're going to have the ability to perform. That's what gets you up. What you don't want is persistent exposure to those negative chemicals, because then they start to upset the system. They irritate the system. That's when we get stomach upsets, repeated colds. We start to get agitated. We're not eliminating the stress the same. So one disadvantage with COVID is we're all sitting down instead of getting out and actually doing more. So your personal habits and doing them consistently help you enormously. So yes, that's where it crosses over.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's so many things you've just said there in 1 minute. So what are the triggers? What tips can you give our viewers where you said there's almost like good stress and bad stress, that, wake up in the morning and what are some of those touch points? How do you know thought-wise, feeling-wise, I'm on track or I'm not on track? And if I'm not on track, I should do something about it.
Yeah, you're right. Good stress and bad stress. So good stress is basically, do I have the energy? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? Is always the question is, am I enjoying what I'm doing? And if you can honestly answer yes, then on the whole, your good stress is energizing you. Okay. So if I have the energy to get through the day, and if I am eating well as a result, and if I am feeling good and delivering, and I'm productive, and okay, so you get rough days, but I'm tolerating them, that's a good level of resilience, and that's positive stress. So there's a certain amount of tension and there's a certain amount of difficulties, but they're within my ability, not bored. So one of the struggles I've got with executives, funnily enough, is they hate boredom. They have a low boredom threshold. So for them, businesses need to diversify, or they need to do more than one thing, or they need to be meeting people a lot so they can connect. Now, bad stress is when they've got too much to do, no real planning, no real system or process in place for helping themselves, not enough support. That might mean peer level, that might mean subordinates. Yes. And possibly they're getting, they've got shareholders or they've got people who are interfering in that decision making, and then it starts to unravel because then they disengage. And once they've got unhappy and they disengage, that's stress as you and I would know it.
So could you give an example then, Sue? Let's say, we work with a lot of family businesses, entrepreneurs around the world. And if I'm in the boardroom and there's 7 or 8 people in the boardroom with the family facilitating the meeting, I know with my experience, body language wise, something's not right with someone. Maybe they're disengaged. They're not prepared to speak up. They don't want to get involved in the conversation. They're looking down all the time.
You got it.
What else could there be? What else could people look out for to go, oh yeah, my family member here, my husband or my wife, my daughter, my son, I think I need to be involved in this because there's signals here that there's stress going on and they're not dealing with it.
Okay. One of the things that we always try to do is to protect our children, no matter what age they are. And even once they get adults, a 60-year-old mature person is still going to be quite protective of their younger person. So one of the things that we've got to be careful of is you can't be overprotective, and you can't think or assume that you know what they're going to say or what they would offer. So it's extremely important, particularly in family businesses, to let every individual who is involved feel heard. They've got to feel they've got an opinion. They've got to feel valued. They have to feel their intellectual property is important and that they have the territory and the autonomy to make decisions within the business. If you're going to bring them in, you've got to give them that. Yeah. If you don't let go because you don't give them enough free rein, they will disengage and they'll sit there at the table, and that's when they'll look down and they won't bother to express anything in meetings because there's no point. And that's largely what you're picking up when that individual is present. If they don't have that senior partner or senior family member nearby and they're suddenly more engaged and more animated, you've spotted the reason why, and it's a relationship issue. So on some sort of level, you're looking for not temporary tension, dare I say this, but consistent tension is actually your marker. Consistently disengaging or consistently unhappy. And dreadful as that sounds, you have to wait till it gets to that level before you can reliably say, right, here is a problem, this is a problem.
So how do you deal with that apart from saying, hey, you, call Sue, right?
Yeah, I know.
Details, call Sue. Because if you try to confront that person and say, you don't look well, are you okay? Let me say, yeah, I'm fine. But they don't want to interact with you. They don't want to open up. And if you don't, get in there with some sort of intervention, it's going to get worse.
Well, that's the problem, and it can do. And I think mediation or facilitation are 2 big words usually used in the context of divorce. But let's just use those words in the context of looking out for somebody. There's nothing wrong with you attempting to facilitate an overture. And the way that you would do that is you talk about yourself. You'd have a polite, private little one-to-one after the meeting is finished, and you quietly say to them, do you know what, stuff that's going on right now is really, it's messing with my head, or I'm finding it quite hard, or I don't know about you, but it's difficult, how are you finding it? And you gently open the door for that person to be able to talk to you. If they're going to, they will. If they say, no, I'm fine, then you allow that, respectfully withdraw, try again a second time and say, actually, this time use an example. So say you make a second approach and you say, in the meeting, I noticed that you were, Or when I was expecting you to be able to speak, you didn't seem to want to. Or do you know what? You've always been of real value in these meetings, but you were very quiet today. So try a second time and see if you can encourage them to come out of themselves. It's quite possible if they trust you and they like you that they will do so.
I
And
like that.
only
I
if
really
you
like that,
are,
Sue.
yeah, I think you have to try. I think trust and a bit of respect and encouragement and effort, attention, care, and everything else are important ingredients here. And if you're in there, be in there with them.
You got me. Well, you got my head popping there, because I think even I have to rewind this video episode and play those
And watch
couple of
it
minutes
again.
again just to
Yeah,
get those questions. Those are
I
really good.
know.
Yeah,
I know.
that was good. So, what about balance? I know in one of your books you talk about is that possible? Can you really have equilibrium? Could you really have life balance across
No.
all areas of your life?
No, that's the honest answer. No, but that doesn't mean I don't think that you should try. What I want balance to really be about is happiness and enjoyment. And if both of those are in place and you have the toolkit to cope with your life, then you will know, because you will get enough rest even if you don't get it every night. You will feel as if you're rewarded because you have achieved something. You will feel productive. You will feel good. Your relationships will have your investment and your time and your energy. And believe me when I say to you, they need that in order to stay on board. You're taking them with you then rather than leaving them behind. And that would be the same whether that's peer level subordinates or your family. So there's no doubt that you can balance your life, but it doesn't mean with work and with everything else in some kind of equality. I don't think that's realistic, but that doesn't mean I'm suggesting you shouldn't try to pay attention as much as you can.
What you talk about is living well, yeah? So you may
That's
not
right.
balance, but at least living well. So what are some of the
That's right.
things you could share with us of 3-4 things to live well? What would those things be?
Right, that's a brilliant question, Reg. Thank you. I would say to you, and I think you and I both know this because we've known each other a long time now, setting goals in your life is a priority if you want to be able to achieve. The brain is a goal-seeking mechanism or missile. If you don't have clarity about what you think you want, whether that's as a person, as a family, in your relationships, in your career, your finances, your health and your well-being, then the brain will just come back with mediocre, because that's what you've given it as an answer. So I would say clarity around what it is that you want, and then setting those goals are a priority. But caveat, lots of high performance people are competitive and perfectionist, and that is not necessarily a healthy combination psychologically, because it means that they will always set themselves the highest goal and the next highest goal. And then when they get the goal, instead of going, isn't that fantastic, and let's have a bit of reward, so reward would be the second, they simply reset the goal and try further again. Now all they're doing is putting inordinate pressure on themselves, so there is never any breathing space.
They're not even enjoying that moment, are they?
And that can be the risk. So the third is definitely breathing space, whether it's in a day, so pace your day. Nobody has to know where you are 24/7. My PA does not put in back-to-back meetings. I do not allow her to, and she gets that now. She really does, because I need breathing space. Yes. So pace your day, good nutrition, look after yourself. But I said goals, genuinely reward, balance, I think, is about paying attention to a lot of the different aspects of your life, but breathing space. And I would probably say learn the toolkit in the sense that resilience to cope if something doesn't go well for you. And you can call that whatever you like, coping with change, coping with setbacks. I don't like the F word. Failure is not a word in my language.
F word. I was going to say, oh, what F word you're going to use here?
No, sorry, no, just failure. And I don't like it. It's a very intense, very negative word, and it upsets you, and it upsets your headspace, and it upsets the way you talk to yourself. So would I probably even add another? Watch how you talk to yourself.
So your self-talk, the
self-talk is massive. There are two versions of you. There's the good and the bad. And this is without doubt, they come out to play between 2 and 4 in the morning, and they have a hefty play and they beat the hell out of you.
You're right, they do at exactly 3:33.
Absolutely. And they will wake you up. You have to fight back. You must have a 3-line mantra, and I have mine by the side of my bed. Yeah. So I literally reach straight away for my piece of card, and it says, I know what I'm doing. Set myself up for the day, drive it home, Sue. or something similar. And I've got them all over the place. We're not in this alone. We're in this together. Stay focused, work hard, victory, not survival. I've got them all over the place, Reg. So they are 3-line mantras where I fight back, especially if I'm feeling a bit low.
Yeah, that's good. Really good advice. Linking back to stress for a second, one thing that's popping in my head is when people are tired,
Yes.
one thing you talk about in your book is about energy.
Yeah.
So if you're always tired, what do you do? Well, what's causing that? And then how do you get out of that to create energy?
That's a very good point. Step back out of your life long enough to look at what it is that's actually triggering that. There are probably small habits that you are doing that are sustaining that, and without even realizing it. What are you doing? Are you not stopping and having meals properly? Are you not breathing well enough and putting enough pace in your day? Are you not getting enough rest at night? Are you burdened with an awful lot going on? Are you not getting enough support? Is there not enough going on in terms of rest and hobbies and alternative things to look forward to? And this is obviously a little bit difficult during COVID. So what's going on? Step out of it, helicopter above it, and shine a loving light on it and say, okay, what am I doing here? What am I enjoying? What am I not enjoying? And is there anything at all that I can think of that I want to do with it, or that I could do with it? I don't like doing a selling pitch, but there is quite a useful exercise in the book, and it's to assess where I'm at on all of these areas. And I tend to say, examine your state so that you can work out, are you just pushing adrenaline into the system and not really investing enough time and getting enough rest? And truthfully, there'll be a reason. This is what I'm saying in a nutshell. There'll be a reason for that. Yeah. You need to know what
that's a beautiful list. I think you've just mentioned about 10 things there.
Yeah.
That's a checklist.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm a hugely pragmatic, practical person. I think I always laughingly say I was born a psychologist because I just like being able to watch people, and I just gave myself a really good professional excuse to do so. So I took the qualifications just so I could sit there and watch, knowing I was all right about doing it.
Love that. So with linking this to COVID-19, the coronavirus, what's happening with the pandemic, living well, has that changed this year?
Yes, 100%, and I'm not going to lie. I think one of the biggest shocks that we had, which created a curious response amongst some owners, because now they get a great big energy hit because they have to run around like headless chickens trying to get all of their people sorted and their alternative ways of running their businesses. But over and beyond that, some of them dipped very markedly and they dropped into a real lethargy, apathy, sadness, depression, whatever it was. And that's dependent on the lead time or lag time before their businesses were affected. If you haven't been directly affected and your cash flow hasn't dropped by 1/3 or 50%, you're extraordinarily lucky. If you found a way to diversify, that too is brilliant. But for those who have felt the hit, there's still a shock factor, and it's taking a while to press the reset button. So I would say to you, they need to step out of the situation, analyze what they've got, analyze where they think they can still make money, press the reset and head back in. And if that's looking different than it was before, that in all priority is probably going to be the best thing for them to do.
So, and also I've noticed people, in certain countries around the world where there's been extended lockdown, now we're seeing these spikes. Yeah. I feel that with my parents, trying to protect them remotely, where they can't meet lots of people, and now, for the first time, they're saying, well, hang on, we've got more of our joints that are hurting suddenly. We're not feeling too well. It's like, oh my God, this 3-4 month period is now, forget coronavirus, they're now getting another virus.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're sitting down for too long, you see. We're doing everything now seated. And we thought it was such a relief at first because we don't have to commute anymore. And you know that I'm a speaker. So arguably, it's bliss for me that I don't have to sit on a train for 5 hours to get up to Scotland prior to then presenting the following morning and then come all the way back down. But actually, you then begin to realize all you're doing is sitting all day. So you absolutely must get up every 40 minutes and just walk around for 5. You need to go for 2 walks a day if you're not into more cardiovascular workout. My Achilles are both playing up because I took to running to the point where I thought I was super proud because I was managing 5 miles a time, only to find both Achilles are struggling. I'm 55 years old, Reg. What am I expecting? It's nuts.
You just said two walks a day for how long?
Okay. So in an ideal world, wear a Fitbit or something similar. So there are a number of apps you can download if you have a typical phone. Not that I'm trying to do a promotion for anything here, but if you can, watch the number of steps you're doing. We're looking to 8 to 10,000 is the typical norm, and that would be really good for you. That's the only way to dissipate the adrenaline through your system, to get a break and a change, to get the headspace to be able to think, to run off the walk off the chemicals in your system so that you come back and then you can sleep. If you don't do that, they sit in your muscles here, you get super tight, you get headaches, you get tension, the veins in your legs don't actually flow properly because the valves don't flow because you're sitting all the time. And our midriff, anyone found that their waist has grown any bigger? I would think so.
Mine has in the last 3 months, below the line here, as you can see.
And this is what's happening. This is what's happening. So I hate to be preachy, but watch the fat intake, try not to, just watch your nutrition just a little bit and reinvest a bit of time and effort in paying attention to that. Keep it healthy.
You've motivated me now. I'm going to go for a walk later on.
Absolutely. Twice a day, Reg.
And if Fitbit are watching, you've got a new person who's going to endorse your
I tried not to say that. Yes, I did try not to, but it's the similar kind of principle. You've got to be able to measure how much you're doing.
Sue, really, really good insights. Thank you so much. The next bit I want to cover with the time that we've got is really about relationships.
Yeah.
This is a big subject for you as well, I know, outside of the well-being stress, but it's all linked, isn't it?
Yes,
and I know in one of your books you talk about the cycle of relationships, parents, friends, your life partner, then your family, your extended family, and then the whole sort of cycle starts again. So I'd love to know from your thoughts around how do you create great relationships, meaningful relationships, happy relationships, and the flip side of that is why are we seeing so many people getting divorced?
Oh, I know, it's painful, isn't it? I would say to you, first of all, you've got to invest in yourself. The first person you invest in is you. If you actually consider that self-esteem, self-belief, self-worth, self-confidence, all of these, they're terribly important. Invest in some self-love so that you feel good about you. If you don't, you're going to fix a broken person because you're matched with the wrong individual in the first place. You'll be a bit broken, they'll be a bit broken, you'll get attracted to the wrong pair. If you've chosen well, they love you, they care about you, they'll invest in you, and you will know that. If you're insecure and unhappy, then there's where the risk factors start to show the cracks. So pay attention to investing in your loved ones. Spending time with them is literal, but listening to them when they talk and feeling heard yourself is terribly important. Buy the odd gift, say the odd pleasurable well done and approval and reward, because this is what makes people tick. If you're not able to do any of those things, because you're not in a relationship at the moment. Online dating is not a negative exactly, but I am just sensitive about not rewarding people for divorcing, because at the end of the day, it's symptomatic of a change in what they didn't probably get right. And if they didn't invest in communication and directly asking for what they needed, then your relationship dies one conversation at a time. Not so much for what you said,
communication,
but it's what you don't say sometimes. So yeah, once we're on the road to divorce, it's horribly tricky and it's horribly painful, and especially where children are concerned. Right?
Something you said right at the beginning of when you started talking about relationships, you mentioned about choosing well.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's a big one. So hopefully the next generation entrepreneurs of family business clients are watching. My kids will be watching it. So what tips have you got for choosing well?
Right. So my feeling genuinely is spend quite a lot of time getting to know them as a person so that they're friends, so that you actually really get to enjoy and are relaxed in their company. You can be yourself. You can make that stupid joke and not feel super self-conscious. You can fall over because you accidentally stumbled and not feel super stupid. All of these things are about getting to know someone, and it takes a good length of time to do that. Maybe even go through a hardship together. I lost my father in January, and he'd had Alzheimer's, so I knew that we were unfortunately working towards it. It was 7, 8, 9 years or something like that. But the number of people I can count on during that period of time when I really needed is very small, Reg. So having that close-knit, close individuals with whom you can cry, or you can laugh, or you can be silly is really precious. And if there's one in that crowd who you begin to meet and actually take the time to get to know, that's probably the one with whom you've got the real connection. They shouldn't make your heart pound if nothing else is working.
And is it okay to, people say, oh, we want to avoid having arguments, but it depends on, it's okay to have arguments and disagreements, but it's about what happens after, isn't it?
That's healthy arguments are about, I felt heard. I'm really pleased that you let me say that I'm angry with you, or that I'm hurt, or that I'm upset. But now that you've heard that, if nothing changes as a result, then they're not investing. If they listened, but they just got defensive and withdrew, then that's not good either. If they shout back, that's not so bad, as long as both of you then say, okay, let's hug it out, or do the equivalent of hug later when I come round because I'm miffed with you. But eventually, if you hug it out, that's a good sign, because it means that you forgive. If they're not willing to forgive and they hold a grudge, you have a problematic person.
Wow. And what tips can you give, which is like a thread that runs all the way through all different types of relationship? We're talking now life partner, but whether it's with parents,
I get you.
with your own children,
Yeah.
What tips have you got of the thread that runs all the way through? And if you just follow that, you can be successful with your relationships in all.
Great question, Reg. You really go. Thank you. You're just brilliant at these questions. So the thread is, you need to value and care and respect for whoever it is, whether it's your children, your partner, your parents. You need to be willing to listen to them and not be into approval to such a degree that you think it's more important to feel your own opinion matters above their own. You have to give them time, space, and the ability to be able to communicate well with you. To do that, you have to go and see them. To do that, you have to talk to them, and you have to be willing to ask them stuff. So you've got to invest. And I think what I'm saying when I mean invest is energy, time, attention, effort. All of these things are then a thread, and they carry right through.
That's coming out on Friday.
It is coming out on Friday. Thank you. Yes, it's a downloadable ebook, so it's even easy. Well, actually, we haven't gone for Amazon this time, Reg. I've got to be very genuine. I think they're a great group, but I have struggled with the other books that I've had. At the moment, it's available on the site. But if you want to fight me and tell me that you wish it was, by all means, write to me. You'll have my details. You can tell me what you think. But I'd love.
Don't worry about that. We will make sure in the description area the direct details are there to get this ebook, because I can't wait to read it, especially with all the things that you've said. One of the things I know in your book you talk about, I loved it. I've made a note of it here. A very powerful statement: heal or move on.
Yes.
Could you talk us through that world of healing and moving on? What does that mean? And when's the right time to do it? When do you carry on fighting for it? When do you carry on with that relationship? Or when do you go, no, enough is enough?
Absolutely. You begin to work out that a relationship is beyond repair when you have to ask a few very, very honest questions. If the person that you loved was 20 years ago and you do not love this version, and there is nothing that you say or do, and they are not willing to change, then that relationship may be beyond repair. If they are in any way disengaging, ignoring you, or any form of emotional abuse, or they have left the relationship effectively but just not literally gone anywhere, then that relationship is probably beyond repair. There are a couple of other questions in the book as well, and off the top of my head, they are mostly about being able to pick up. If you are beyond lonely, yet you are still in that relationship, then it's probably beyond repair. So truthfully, that's when you decide, okay, I'm not going to hold a grudge here. I'm going to have the most honest conversation I've ever had in my life, and I'm going to pick up my courage and I'm going to sort this. And then I'm going to walk away civilly, respectfully, so that the children do not listen to me argue, and you never do that in front of them.
So what happened in those relationships where at the beginning, wow,
I know,
everything's going on?
Yeah,
what happened?
I know. My honest belief is that it's a little bit related to the chapter on communication. If we're not direct enough with our communication, and we don't ask for what we need, and we don't say when we're hurt or sad or unhappy or broken or angry, then relationships die one conversation at a time. And it's not the conversations we have, sometimes it's the ones we don't have that we're not brave enough to have, which is the problem. So truthfully, they get broken. We sometimes then don't reach out for help. I think that's the second error. If we don't go for some kind of help because we may not be the best communicators and we may not be brave enough to say, do you know what, I'm sad, or this isn't working, then you do need a third party to help support that. And if you choose the right person, often it can be repaired. You've got to be willing, and to do that, try to go early and try to fix it early rather than later. Often once they've drifted into a state of disengaged, they are very much harder to sort.
Wow. We're complicated creatures, aren't we? Human beings.
We are, I'm afraid. And I hate to say this to you. This is why it makes it so uncomfortable for parents, but it's what we learn when we're younger that matters. This is the reason why I'm looking at the kind of life skills that help us all. And I would say to you that being able to make good decisions and problem solve and strong self-esteem and direct communication and telling somebody when you are unhappy is all key. And if you don't learn those fairly early, life begins to get very tricky as you struggle to navigate.
Brilliant. Really good stuff. So last thing so we can conclude, I know with time, is I know in the next book you've got coming out after the one on Friday, the series is around teens, and teenagers.
Thank you.
Why have you gone down that path? Why is this important?
Because this is where it begins. Frankly, it begins as early as 9 or 10. If they get frustrated and angry and they withdraw and they walk away and they don't come back and they don't communicate and they don't learn to do so, or worse, they're wired the other way and they're insecure and unhappy about themselves and they personalize everything and it's always my fault, then what are they going to do when they struggle to cope with change or with failure, or when they go to uni and they think I've made a mistake? How are they going to help themselves problem solve whether this was the right thing for them, and if they can make the decisions that will help them move forward? There are some big skills in life, and parents don't always get the opportunity to teach these, and dare I say it, some don't teach them well.
What are some of these skills? Sorry to interrupt you, Sue, because you're an expert and authority in leadership resilience as well. So if you take the word leadership out and we swap it with teenager resilience, what, as parents, what can we do? What should we do with the next generation in that age group to create happiness and create resilience and create confidence in those teenagers? What tips could you give us?
Okay, strong self-esteem, but not arrogance. So they learn from their mistakes and they understand that they should be making mistakes and that it's okay to do so. But learning to handle a possible mistake, even if it's a huge one, so that they don't interpret it as failure, is another life skill. How do I work out when I have done something that isn't working, and then I have faith and belief in myself? So strong self-esteem is a resilient trait, and you can learn it. You don't have to be born with it. They've got to be able to cope with change. They've got to be able to cope with the potential for getting into a relationship, friendship or otherwise, and it not going well, because the peer pressure on young people now is horrendously high. And then they get really nervous and scared, and they get wired into thinking they're desperately self-conscious. And I watch them when they're walking the streets and I think, oh, wow, you poor things, And I don't know whether we did this, Reg. When I was younger, I obviously cared how I looked, but if I was wearing the wrong thing, I just went back home and changed it. I didn't live in paroxysms of stress for the next week, worried somebody will have put it on social media. So it's a different world.
Yeah, there's a lot of peer pressure for them, isn't there? Whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, and now this whole TikTok generation.
Definitely.
And
they get wired, and they're also wired for healing or soothing this by becoming wired for the buzz, and that is something I am concerned about. So they tend to want to anesthetize that. They don't cope with emotional pain very well, and we all need to learn to do that, Reg. Pain is part of life. Pain doesn't mean it won't go away. So we, as parents, we need to impart some of these. And if we don't get the opportunity to, then they'll probably get to their 20s and they might not be very well equipped. They fall back on the toolkit they've got. And then when they don't cope well, you get anxiety and depression. And that's why I think we're seeing such a high level of it.
Well, what's the title of that next book?
So that one's, I know they're in a series of real life, real topics, but that one's
part of the same book coming out this Friday, which is on relationships.
Yes, thank you.
The next real life, real topics. Then we'll have other subtopics.
Yeah, toolkit for teens. So thank you. Yes.
So it's been an absolute pleasure. Something I always like to do at the end of my episodes is ask this one question, which is based on our life experiences and your experiences, your wisdom. There's things that we realize in life that we know that we know, okay?
Mm,
And there's things that we don't know, and we know we
yeah.
don't know them. So with your wisdom, your experience, what last things can you share for our viewers where you know that you know this? What is that?
You know somewhere in your heart and your head and your body that you have three different brains. You have what goes on in here, which is telling you the logic of what you're doing. You have your heart, and if your heart's not in it, then that means you shouldn't be doing it. And if your gut tells you that that's not a good idea, then when you that's all together, that's your intuition telling you no. Listen to it. Learn to listen to what you know is right for you. And that's a great place to start.
Beautiful. Well, I want to thank you very much for
You're
your
very
time.
welcome.
Can't wait to share the video with as many people as we can. And for those of you watching right now, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, helps the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, leave your comments, and go to the description area on the YouTube channel to find out more about Sue's work, her websites, find out about the new book. All the details will be there, okay? So Sue, thank you once again. Look forward to doing this again when your next
You're
book
so
comes out,
welcome.
and we'll talk a little bit more about teenagers.
Thank you, Reg. Take care.